The first realization is the awareness that all dharmas are impermanent and without separate selves. By contemplating the impermanent and non-self nature of all dharmas, you can escape suffering and obtain enlightenment, peace, and joy. The second realization is the awareness that more desire brings more suffering. All hardships in life arise from greed and desire. The third realization is the awareness that living simply, having few desires, leads to peace, joy, and serenity. Living simply allows for more time and concentration to practice the way and to help others. The fourth realization is the awareness that only diligent effort leads to enlightenment. Laziness and indulging sensual desires are obstacles to practice. The fifth realization is the awareness that ignorance is the cause of the endless cycle of birth and death. You must always remember to listen and learn in order to develop your understanding and eloquence. The sixth realization is the awareness that poverty creates hatred and anger, which in turn creates a vicious cycle of negative thoughts and actions. Followers of the way, when practicing generosity, should consider everyone, friends and enemies alike, as equal, not condemning anyone's past wrongdoings or hating those who are presently causing harm. The seventh realization is the awareness that, although we dwell in the world to teach and assist others, we should not become caught up in worldly matters. One who leaves home to follow the way possesses only 3 robes and a bowl. They always live simply and look at all beings with the eyes of compassion. The eighth realization is that we do not practice for our individual enlightenment alone, but devote our whole being to guiding all others to the gates of enlightenment. At this time, we will return to noble silence. And I suggest during this mindful time that you ponder upon the first realization, the realization being that awareness that all dharmas are impermanent and without separate selves. By contemplating the impermanent and non-self nature of all dharmas, you can escape suffering and obtain enlightenment, peace, and joy. What exactly does this mean to you? At this time, I'd like to invite up our incense lighters. And if you turn to page 2 in our morning service booklet, we will recite the incense lighting gatha together. And together we say, in gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. And we bow. Good morning, everyone. A few reminders before we start service. Reminder not to walk across the front just for the sake of the camera. And if you need to use restrooms, they're just behind these curtains. There's two here, and then there's another one downstairs. If you do need space for yourself, whether maybe you're have some allergies like me and your throat gets a little dry, there's water down there. There's also some cups of water, paper cups just over here if you need something like that. I think there's also cough drops, so like help yourself. Lastly, when we are chanting, put some life into it. Like, we don't want to just say the words to say them because they're in a book and that's what we do every Sunday. Try to bring some life into it. Try to bring it into your heart and enjoy it while you're doing it. Habituate a state of mind that is filled with love and goodness and joy. So let's go ahead and stand up and greet each other silently. On page 3, we will begin by reciting the 3 refuges. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindful breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning, and to help relieve the grief of one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. And on the next page, you'll find the Heart Sutra. So, normally the person leading the chant is known as something called an unse, and you want to try and match with that person. So do your best to try and find an equanimity in the way that we chant this. We also want to inject life into it. And if you're good at harmonizing, like, go for it. If you feel like you can find that tune, like add some of your gifts to this as well. Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna, Paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age of death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all delusive views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, para, gate, para samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, para, gate, para samgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, para, gate, para samgate, bodhisvaha. Dhamma prajna paramita hridaya sutra. At this time, if you have a prostration practice, you are welcome to engage in that. I will prostrate 3 times in front of the dais in honor of the teacher, the one who has passed down these teachings to us. And then once I've taken a seat, you're welcome to do 3 prostrations as well if you have that in your practice. If you don't, if you can wait until I'm seated on the dais to sit down, that would be appreciated. Good morning, everyone. Some of you know who I am. Some of you may not. My name is Igye Su, and I'm a Dharma teacher here at the temple. I study in the Tibetan Gelugpa tradition, which is the same tradition as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Today, I will be focusing my talk around the second precept, which is the precept of not stealing. I feel like it's pretty obvious, like don't steal. You know, we kind of learn that when we're kids. I have a memory of walking out of a shoe store with my family, my mom, my older sister, and my little brother. And as soon as we got into the car, my sister was playing with these shoelaces, these like, you remember the stringy ones that were like kind of swirly and, you know, were easy for your kids to tie their shoes? Well, my sister had walked out of the store with them without my mom paying for them. And so immediately my mom is like, oh no, we got to turn around and go return these. And, you know, when you're a kid, you don't necessarily think of it as stealing. It's not like you don't think that it doesn't belong to you. You're just kind of like, yeah, this is cool. I'm going to take it, you know? And so we learn that like, oh, hey, there are these boundaries that we must respect with other people. And so I feel like that's pretty obvious. So today I want to talk about what is the not so obvious side, or the subtle ways that we steal. And I'd like to begin by reading where this comes from in our tradition, right? Where did the Buddha teach this? And he taught it in a sutta known as the Abhisanda. And I'm sure there's other places as well, as this teaching comes up pretty regularly. And he says, abandon taking what is not given. Abandoning taking what is not given, or stealing, the disciple of the noble ones abstains from taking what is not given. In doing so, he gives freedom from danger, freedom from animosity, freedom from oppression to limitless number of beings. And in return, he gains a share in limitless freedom from danger, animosity, and oppression. And these are called gifts. The precepts are called gifts, not because they are a gift to us, but because when we practice them, they are a gift to others. So we are practicing not stealing as out of respect and out of consideration for all other beings. So it's not our gift. You can think of it as a gift, but it's really a gift to each other. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this in his 5 mindfulness trainings. And I'm also going to read the section on that. And this section is called True Happiness. And again, this comes back to the whole practice of not stealing. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I'm determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. And I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering. That true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion. And that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I'm aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I'm committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and stop contributing to climate change. And you can see that Thich Nhat Hanh brings in other ways that we can observe stealing. You know, how are our habits of maybe recycling, or maybe it's how we shop at the grocery store. Those play into how we might be stealing from the Earth's resources. But I also think it's important to observe what is it in ourselves that still causes stealing, right? And so we can see that stealing isn't just about taking material items. It's also about this underlying intention about how it creates suffering, not just for the person that's stealing, but also for the people that they're stealing from, or the earth, or whatever it is, right? Because as we know in these traditions, there are multiple kinds of beings. What are we taking from all the beings in the oceans? What are we taking from all the beings in the dirt? And so when we think about stealing, we have these things called mental afflictions. Everybody has them. Buddha had them too, until he got rid of them. And that's what's so beautiful about our teacher, is that he was a person just like you and me, but he was able to wake up because he practiced. And so when we talk about these mental afflictions, these are these things that, these habits that we have cultivated for limitless eons. We've done this since the beginning of time, beginningless time. And those are, the main one is ignorant liking, or what is known as craving, what is known as attachment, desire. And when we think about the definition of that, ignorant liking, it's wanting things that we don't have, right? And isn't that the basis of stealing? Wanting something that we don't have. And so when let's take out our detective spyglass and look a little deeper, subtly. What does that mean? It's like, of course I don't steal. It's not like I'm walking into the grocery store and taking things and walking out without paying, right? I don't, most commonly we don't do those things. I mean, maybe you do, I don't know. But, I'm sure some of us like to go in and take a grape or two and pretend that it was just a gift, right? But the idea being that, where is it more subtly are we taking? How are we taking other people's time? What words are we using where we're expecting an exchange from somebody? Do you ever give a gift, not because you think it's an unconditional gift, but because you have some kind of expectation behind it? How are you stealing there? So I think it's important to clarify that it is not wrong to want things. It's important to have desire. You desire to see a world without war and without fighting and without suffering, right? That's a healthy kind of liking. It's ignorant liking. It's liking from not understanding where things really come from, right? What is the karma that created that for you? And so when we steal, it's usually because we feel like we're lacking something. We don't have something. There's a craving there, but why is that craving there? Maybe we need to acquire more material things. Maybe we need to acquire more emotional things. Maybe we need the attention from somebody, or we think we need the attention from somebody to fill this craving that's in our hearts. And now, who put the craving there in the first place? I think that's really some of the questions that the Buddha asks us to investigate. Because behind that, we're taught, underneath that craving, that we have Buddha nature. We already are enough. And so some of my teachers really ask us to look at the concentric circles of stealing. Like, okay, well, what were to happen if I were to steal? Right? And if you think of the inner circle as being, stealing pretty obviously, like taking physical belongings, right? Or taking somebody's time purposely, right? Oh, like, my 2-year-old likes to do that. She really gets annoyed when my 4-year-old is asking for my attention. So she'll intentionally come and like sit on my lap and, be like, nah, this is my mom. It's like, girls, come on now, So like even little things like that come up, since beginningless time. How is it that a 2-year-old knows how to do this? Well, she was born that way, right? She had the karma to see her world that way. And so If you think about the circle that's kind of outside of that, maybe it's borrowing something without giving it back. Anybody have any old library books in their house? Yeah? We forget. And it's not intentional. It's not like maybe it is intentional. Maybe you're like, I really want this book, but it costs so much. So I'm going to see if they have it at the library and just forget. But usually it's unintentional, right? We don't mean to. We just, forget because our lives are so busy. And not just being busy, but we don't have the karma to remember. And so the next circle outside of that is considering how we might take something to gain for ourselves, right? Maybe you've seen that job promotion and you know that 5 other people are gunning for it. And so you purposely do things to make sure that you get it and nobody else does. That's just one kind of extreme example, right? We have our mind has these ways of trying to figure out how it can benefit us over others. And the Buddha is asking us to flip that on its head. How can we change that? Because when you benefit others, you benefit yourself. And so I think the outer circle kind of ends on merely just the thought of like, oh, maybe I could do this to benefit me. And so how can we, through the 3 doors of expression, action, speech, and thought, subtly work with this way of not stealing? And to hold ourselves accountable, right? Our practice is our personal responsibility. So unless we're constantly looking and evaluating and seeing outside of this space, this place where we come to hear the Dharma, when you're actually living your life and living this practice, how are you playing with those things? How is this subtly your mind tricking you and being like, no, that's not stealing. Oh, no, it's not. Are you sure? Or is your mind really just like that habit? Is it familiar with it so much that it doesn't want you to see that that's part of it? So investigate like a detective. And in my tradition, we have our bodhisattva vows are different than what is taught here. What's taught here, we know in our tradition as the 10 non-virtues. So does anybody have bodhisattva vows that they've taken here at this temple? You can raise your hand maybe? Yeah. So those are what is known as the 10 virtues and 10 non-virtues in the Tibetan tradition. And when you go on to take bodhisattva vows, you take the 18 root vows and the 64 secondary vows. And when we look at the 18 root vows, those that are related to the foundational precepts, because that's what they are, the precepts are the foundation of our vows. And so the 18 root vows, we have stealing what's belonged to the Buddha jewel, stealing what belongs to the Dharma jewel, stealing what belongs to the Sangha jewel, or accepting what belongs to the jewels or the Sangha or a monk when it's presented to you. So the idea of the precepts is that it's a foundation to support creating the karmas or acting in a way that provides or puts into your storehouse consciousness the karmas, the beneficial karmas that will continue to move your mind towards enlightenment. Okay. Now, I keep using the word karma. And for those of you who are not familiar with what karma means, because there's a lot of misconceptions about what karma is the way that your mind moves. And then it's all the actions that follow that. Okay. So our mind moves in a certain way. And like when you're 2 years old, it moves in a way to say, no, that's my mommy, not your mommy. Okay. And so we eventually learn how to transform that karma, eradicate that karma, and see that that's not really the way things are. Oh, you're my sister. Yeah, she's your mom too. Oh, okay. All right. Got it. Right. We eventually transform the way we think and the way we see the world. So the idea being that when you have this baseline, the precepts, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't engage in sexual misconduct, and, try to eradicate intoxicants from your life, right? Those are all the foundations for all the other vows that come after that. So they're incredibly important to start practicing somewhere. And I know vow appears to be this like really heavy word. It's really just a way to hold yourself accountable so you can create good movements of mind, right? Rather than bad ones. Has anybody ever gotten a new car or a new to you car, and then all of a sudden you see that car everywhere? Yeah, you're familiar with that? Yeah, that phenomena. The same thing happens when you move your mind towards not so good things. Okay. I'm sure that there's plenty of people in this room that are familiar with addiction. And that addiction started somewhere. And the more that your mind moved towards that thing, the more that it craved it, the more that it wanted it, the more you habituated that in your life. But when you start to see that suffering, you find that renunciation of, wow, this really sucks what I'm doing to myself. And that starts to pull your attention because you see that it's going to benefit you and others more to come out of that kind of craving, to come out of that kind of suffering. And so there's a couple pieces of advice that we can do to boost this idea of following these moral guidelines. And you can think of this, if you're familiar with it, of do unto others as you would want to have done to you, right? And so first, the advice is avoid the behavior yourself. Avoid stealing, right? When you start to see that your mind is moving in a way that is not unconditional, that has conditional outcomes, start to really zone in on that and see, how can I avoid those kinds of behaviors? And remember, it's ignorantly. It's how we're doing it in the wrong view. It's not saying don't like, okay? It's okay to like things. It's okay to go to the fridge and eat the chocolate cake. Like, do it. Even if you were like, man, my partner really wanted a slice. Maybe I'll just take a few bites. Yeah, okay? But then we also have, when you see others moving in that way too, maybe you have a friend who's really craving your attention and they think that that's the only thing that's going to make them happy. It's not to say that you shouldn't, give your friend that time of day, but also know when to cut them off, when to know when that boundary has been breached. Okay? So it's encourage others to avoid that behavior too. How are we going to make the world a better place? Is it going to be by just letting people run amok? Letting people create more negative karmas for themselves? Or can we help them, for those of us who have taken that bodhisattva wish? And last thing you can do is give praise when you see somebody coming out of those kinds of afflictions. Okay? Subtle stealing, subtle ways of moving their mind that might not be so beneficial. I hope some of this is making sense. I am purposely talking a little bit in code because that's how the Buddha talks. The Buddha talks in code, and it's our job to start to unwork and unwind the way that we mistakenly see things. And so how can we do this, right? The first thing that I recommend is going for refuge. Very first thing you can do when you start to see your mind wanting to engage with this dualistic way of thinking, it's going to be go for refuge. Work on understanding where your karma comes from and work on understanding emptiness. If you see stealing in your world, it's a result of past habituated actions and mental tendencies. Okay? And you might be thinking, well, but I see somebody else stealing, so what does that have to do with me? Yeah? What does war have to do with you, even though you see it? It's not saying go and stop the war yourself. It's saying that we still have the karmas to live this out. We still have the karmas to hold a dualistic point of view. When we're born with the karma of seeing things as me and mine. And what that means is we see that this body is mine, right? We see that it belongs to me and nobody else. Or we see that, my mom is my mom and nobody else's. Okay? We start to have this view of separation. But what the Buddha encourages us to see is that those are one and the same. There is no me and mine. We are one and the same. And we might think that somebody outside of you has caused your suffering. Have you ever accused someone of stealing from you? Oh, they took my thing. Maybe it was your little brother or your little sister, or maybe your older brother or older sister. They took my Game Boy. It's my turn. Anybody familiar with that? Oh, how about a more relevant one for us adults? When somebody's at a four-way stop and it's your turn to go and they totally blow past it. But it was my turn to go. How did we let that become a dualistic point of view? Right? How often does it happen in our lives when we let it just slip by? They stole my turn when I was supposed to go first. We still see stealing in our world. So how do we eradicate it? Instead, maybe we change the way our habit mind works and we go, man, I'm really glad they went first. They must have to get somewhere. We find a compassionate view. We bring more awareness to the way that our world is operating because it comes from us. It's our views that are being pushed onto everything that we see around us. A good example of that is hearing a song, right? Let me think of a popular song. Oh, everybody would like this one though. I'm just going to use it. Imagine all the people. John Lennon. I'm sure 99.9% of you in this room are like, oh no, that's a good song. We'd all agree, yeah? Would you believe me if I told you that there's someone in the world who hates that song? Every single time it comes on the radio, oh, not this song again. So does the song inherently exist as something that is pleasant? No, because there's people in the world who don't like it. So is there a permanent thing that says that that song is always going to be good? No, it isn't inherently like that. And that's what emptiness means. Emptiness means that things are not the way that we think they are. And so why not change the way that we see the world when we experience what we see as somebody blowing through a four-way stop? It doesn't mean that we forgive them for their ignorance. It just means that we recognize it and we see, how can I operate in the world a little more wisely, a little bit more compassion? And there's two more things I want to touch on. Another way to overcome our stealing in our world, this way of stealing, is to be generous. Practice generosity. In the meditations that we do in my tradition, these visualization meditations, we always give our teacher something in our visualization. And today I shared with our preceptors the things that I give my teacher in my mental visualizations is rose petals falling from the sky like rain. The Buddha taught that we can give non-material gifts. Like when I went on retreat to Portugal, I wrote notes to my children. So every night when I was away in silence and I couldn't talk to them, that they would have a little piece that they could read that was from me. And I always asked them every night to blow a kiss to the moon because I would too. And that was my gift to them, even though I wasn't present. Say, go out to the moon and blow the moon a kiss. And so this way they could see that I couldn't actually give them the moon, right? But I could at least give them a feeling that their mom was there with them. And so giving doesn't have to be taking all the money out of your bank account and like throwing it at the closest Buddhist temple that you find, although it would be appreciated. But it does mean finding a way that you can test your subtle boundaries of what does it mean to give, right? Maybe just saying hello to a stranger or smiling or calling somebody and telling them that you're thinking about them. And if you're not about calling, text them, right? There's little things that we can do in our world. And then we start to see them more, just like that car, that brand new car that we got. The more that you see, the more that you do good little things, acts of generosity, the more that will start to come up in your world. Wow, that person held the door open for me. That was an act of kindness, an act of generosity. That was a gift. Wow, that person was so kind when they let me go in front of them. That person at the four-way stop, they stopped for me. Little things we can start to see to transform our world into a world of generosity and a world without stealing. And lastly, and I think this is the most important for me and for many in our Western world, craving comes from this belief that something external will complete us. If I have that thing, it'll make me happy. If I have the job, I'll be happy. If I have that car that I want, I'll be happy. If I have the clothes, those brand new shoes, if I have a partner, if I have a relationship, if I have the ice cream, those are the things that will make me permanently happy, right? Wrong. And I think the most important practice, for me anyways, has been recognizing that true happiness does not come from outside of you. And to remember that you're enough. You are enough. And I don't know about you, but I know that I don't say that to myself enough. I know I don't practice that enough. And so when I go into meditation, taking those last few minutes to just remind myself, I'm enough. That's what the Buddha taught. What's behind all the ignorant liking and ignorant disliking and the anger and the pride? It's Buddha nature. It's that you're enough, that you don't need these things outside of you. Now, I'm not saying like stop eating. Like that's not what I'm saying. Like you do need to eat and you do need to take care of your body and you do need to have shelter and love and care. But it means to engage with those things with wisdom, not with the ignorant craving or aversion, right? Oh, I don't want to do the dishes. Why not? It could be an act of love. It could be an act of transforming your world into a clean Buddha paradise with dishes that you can eat on, right? I mean, you could use your hands too, but that starts to get old after a while. You know, we even think that there's extreme measures like the vows are going to be what make me happy. If I take all of the Buddhist vows that are out there, I'll finally become a Buddha. If I become a monk, I'll finally become a Buddha. If I do 1,000 prostrations a day, I'll finally be happy. What are all the things that we think, mistakenly think, are going to bring us to happiness? When we have it already. It's already there. And it's a hard practice when you're feeling really low, when you're down on yourself. It's really hard to turn that around. And so that's why we're given the opportunity to practice things like generosity and to practice things like compassion. That's why we're given that kind of stuff. But I hope that even in those difficult times that you can remember, you're enough. Every little piece about you, you're enough. And I want to read something that inspired me. Can you accept your body with all its aches and pains? Can you accept your mind with all its fears and doubts and brilliant ideas? Can you accept your heart for its capacity to both love and hurt? Can you accept the entirety of your being not as something to be fixed or improved, but as a perfect expression of life itself? And that this acceptance doesn't mean that you stop growing or learning, but that when you accept yourself fully, you are creating the conditions for true growth. You are enough. And I hope that every time you think of the Buddha, you might even start to hear them saying that to you. You're enough. Even in the moments where it doesn't feel like it. You are enough. But you have to believe it. And if you don't believe it, well, there's lots of sutras out there you can study. There's also a lot of good people that will tell you and remind you that you're enough. because I know I see it in every single being. And that's the idea of habituating our mind. The more that you start to remember that you're enough, the more you start to remember that everybody else is too. And so at this time, go ahead and prepare yourself for meditation. Get comfortable. We'll give you a little bit of guidance here. And yeah, stretch it out. Like, move the legs, move the body, get the spine sorted. Grounding your legs into your cushion, pulling up tall through the spine as if there's a string attached to the top, the crown of your head. Pulling up tall, allowing those shoulders to relax down. Hands should be resting in a comfortable position, whether on your thighs or in your lap, whatever's comfortable for you. Tongue should be resting at the back of the teeth, the lips curled up in a small Mona Lisa smile. The area around the eyes relaxes, and that space between the forehead softens. And if you haven't yet, close down your eyes. Begin by calling mindfulness by taking 10 rounds of breaths, focusing on the inhale and the exhale. If any distracting thoughts arise, allow them to settle to the back of the mind. You'll have plenty of time to get back to them later. And if it's true that the movements of our mind create the world that we perceive, what can we place inside of that perception that would encourage us to see a world free of suffering? A world that reminds you that you're enough. What does it mean to be enough? Center your mind around that question and investigate. Think of something that you can do today that would help remind you that both you are enough and everyone else around you is also enough. Maybe it's holding on to your mala, or every time you touch your ear. Something that can bring you back to this reminder. Now in your mind, maybe create a mantra that says that you're enough. What's something that you can say to yourself, like a code word, that would bring you back to that reminder? Maybe it's, I am love. I am compassion. I am enough. And take that mantra and center it at your heart. And notice as a light begins to emanate from that mantra. And it begins to pulsate out from your body to touch every living being in this room. Notice that the power of those words come to transform them and to remove all their suffering. And that light continues to emanate out from this building to cover all of Grand Rapids. Every single being that it touches, it transforms their suffering. It heals everything that holds them back. And that light continues to emanate outwards to all of West Michigan, all of Michigan, the United States, across the whole world, even out into the very edges of the universe. And everything that it touches, everything, every being comes to understand that they are enough. Slowly, that light begins to draw back towards your heart, peeling away from the outer edges of the universe, from the solar system, from the edges of the planet, to to the United States, back into Michigan, to West Michigan, to Grand Rapids, to this temple, and back into your heart, leaving every being with that fresh understanding that they are enough. And on the next inhale, allow that heart, or allow that light to solidify itself in your heart. Gently add some movement to your fingers and into your body. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Thank you. So next we're going to practice joys and concerns. This is a beautiful practice to move our minds to rejoice, as well as to hold space for the state of minds that are troubled. And so someone will come around with a microphone and just raise your hand if there's something that you would like to share, or if there's something that you would like us to hold space for.
Hey, I'm Andy. I have a concern and a joy. My daughter Rosie turned 9 on Friday, but she's been sick. So she went to the hospital 2 weeks ago with the 105 temp, and she ended up having pneumonia. So she's been kind of dealing with that, and it hasn't been getting better. And I guess with her mom this weekend, she was like struggling to walk and support herself. So I'm concerned about Rosie. A joy is that my dad and I did something interesting on Saturday. I was home in Detroit for a wedding, and I asked him if he would like take me around Warren, just on the other side of 8 Mile from Detroit, where he grew up, and just show me like the baseball field that he would play on as a kid, and his elementary school and houses he lived in and stuff like that. So that was special. We don't have the greatest connection anymore, so it was just nice to do that. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Angel. I have a couple of mostly joys. Last week, right after Temple, I found out my mom had been in an accident and was in the hospital. So I went over there, and she was in the ER, and she's still in the hospital. She's at Mary Free Bed, but she's doing really well, and she's got a lot of health factors. It just brought up a lot of the kind of loss and stuff that's happened over the last couple of years, but it was really sweet to see all the shifts in how, I don't know, we just been able to care for each other a little more supportively and in a healthier way, taking care of ourselves as well as one another. And that's felt really good. And my son Wes turns 8 tomorrow. So I'm just really grateful for him, and I feel like people are usually our greatest teachers, and he's definitely my greatest teacher. I learned so much from just living with him and everything that he helps me when I struggle with every day. So I'm just really grateful for him. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Anna. Over the past couple of weeks, I've spent some time in Germany visiting my family and sightseeing, and there's a lot of joys in that story, and also in the concerns that came about during my trip. The first one is that my dog passed away while I was away on vacation. So my little soul of 10 years has left me, and that's left a big hole in my heart. The other concern is that I learned a lot more about my family than I expected, and I learned some family secrets that are shocking, to say the least. And in thinking about this, I've realized that one of my purposes in life is to ease the suffering of the rest of my family because of these secrets. And I'm finally the holder and the gatekeeper of these things. And it's my responsibility now to dispel the karma that's been kind of pushed on some people who have been needlessly suffering because of the selfishness of others. And so it's a joy and it's a concern, and it's all of the above. So thank you for your thoughts.
Good morning. I'm James, and I've been away for a few weeks. I have a joy this morning because I had back surgery less than 3 weeks ago, but I'm sitting here comfortably, standing comfortably, and so far things have gone really well. I know I got some good healing energy sent my way from this Sangha, and I'm just very appreciative of this place and these people. So thank you. Thanks for the joy.
I
Hi, my name's Amy. I have a little joy. It's about a cat. My partner's a mail carrier, and the route they've been doing every day, they've been seeing this super, super friendly cat that it looks like has been abandoned at a house for like 2 months, and they've been slowly getting worse and worse, like skinnier and skinnier, and it's been concerning. So about a week ago, I contacted Fig and Friends, which is all the cats next door. That's Fig and Friends. And I was worried because I never heard back, and the cat just like disappeared. And I was like, maybe it died, like maybe someone got rid of the body. But then I heard back from Fig and Friends. They picked it up. They're taking care of it. They're feeding it, doing all the treatment. And I'm just so happy. And they renamed it. And so probably in a couple weeks or so, it'll be in that cat cafe. I'm just really happy. They named it Bonsai. So he's so sweet and friendly. Every day he'd go up to my partner and just cuddle up and meow. So yeah.
Good morning. I'm Mickey. I just want to share some joys as well. Definitely thankful that my family is all together today and able to come to the temple and be together and share space. Definitely thankful for this amazing being. My Auntie Eve came down from upstate New York to do a sibling weekend, and we got to spend a bunch of time with her. And she shared a written documentary of how she became really good friends with Bob Dylan when she worked in Woodstock at this cafe. He would go and do these amazing tiny little concerts a long, long time ago. And just learning about this and all these wonderful connections that she had up in upstate New York and Woodstock was really cool. And then kind of connecting with the story you had this morning, I found a couple of addresses of homes that she grew up in here in Grand Rapids, and one is right by my school. So I'm looking forward to checking that out and seeing the home that she and my mom and my uncles and aunts all grew up in. So looking forward to that, but just wanted to share those joys. Thank you for listening.
My joys are pretty simple. Like when I walked in, the Buddha statue, him being happy alone made me happy. All you guys' experience, I don't know, kind of helped too. I was gonna say something, I kind of forgot. I remember now. I want to donate my hair to less fortunate people, and I don't know if that's gonna bring me joy, but I think it will.
All right. Good morning, Sangha. I'm really grateful to be here. I have lots of joy, and I have no problem sharing my joy. So on Thursday, we celebrated, me and a few others, 1 year at Guiding Light, 1 year in sobriety. It was a big celebration, and I thought I'd practice a joyful expression. So I go up and I'm standing in front of like a ton of people, and I center myself, and I throw my hands in the air, and I go, "Whoa, we made it!" You know, and everyone really exploded with joy. It was a lot of fun. It really it really was. It was a practice of vulnerability too, because I had no idea how that was going to work. And then and then it was another at the end. I asked people to tap into their inner cheerleader and like do the same thing to other people that are early in the program that are really still struggling and fresh in addiction. And Guiding Light's are a difficult program, and you get a lot going on. To let them know that we want to support their victories, right? We want to celebrate their victories. And people exploded. It was just such a powerful moment in my journey. It was really I had no idea if it was going to work, but it did. And it brought a lot of joy. And I'm like, did that just happen? Wow, my life's a lot different today. Anyway, I'm really grateful. Thanks for sharing. Or thanks for receiving. There it is.
I have kind of a whimsical moment of joy. So this is my first time being back in about 2 weeks. I helped a friend move from Orlando, Florida, which is where I'm recently moved here from, to Albuquerque, New Mexico, in the middle of the hurricane. So that was a stressful trip, to say the least. I'm happy to be back. And I had a moment when I was driving this U-Haul. Naturally, I was like, all right, I'm driving through the Southwest. I got to listen to like old country and Western music and stuff like that. A Willie Nelson song came on, and I noticed that like in the main chorus, the song is called "Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die," which is ridiculous. But there's a lyric in the main chorus that sounded almost exactly like the Dharma talk several weeks ago before I left. That was on death, and there was the Thich Nhat Hanh like meditation where it was on, I believe it was not coming and not going, and there's the main lyric in the chorus is literally like, I didn't come here and I'm not leaving. And I just had this moment of like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly that thing. And it was just like this awesome spark and joyous moment that made a stressful trip a lot less stressful.
Hi, Sangha. My name is Vanessa, and I have a concern. I have just been doing some, research this week and reflecting, and I just think that I'd like to hold space for the human trafficking victims that are in our city. I just don't feel like there's enough resources for them, and there's a lot of victim blaming. So I would just like, to take a moment of silence to just, suffer with them. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Keenan, and I'm just sharing one joy, very simple. I'm just happy to be here today. Thank you for welcoming me.
Good morning. My name is Chungo Su. My son Parker and I last night we went to the Bean Observatory in Lowell. I live in Lowell, and I've been meaning to go, and it's been a while. They did a viewing yesterday morning where they had a telescope set up looking at the sun, and it had a special filter on it, and it was I've never seen through like a really powerful telescope like that, and I've never looked at the sun. Well, I have, but not like I
Not
haven't
in
really
the
seen the sun.
intelligent way.
Yeah. And it was, I was, similar to like your hands throw, like I was just exploding with excitement. It was so spectacular. You could see kind of like these almost hairs, flares. You could see the sunspot. And if you look real closely, you could kind of like see it moving. It was just unbelievable. And then we went back yesterday evening, and they had they have multiple telescopes set up, and it was a beautiful night. And you walk up, and there were lights like every 10 feet up this path, and it was really just magical. And we saw different galaxies, and we saw Saturn, and it was just so brilliant. And one of the objects we saw was called M13, and it was just hundreds of thousands of stars just in this cluster. However knows how far away. And just to see it, and then you notice like over time we had to adjust the telescope, because not only are we orbiting the sun, but our galaxy is also orbiting some like black hole, and then like whatever is going on out there is also orbiting like our galaxy. It was like, oh my gosh, it was really spectacular, and just wanted to share that. Thank you.
I had a realization about friendship the other day that there comes a point where you know somebody for a while and you have an impression of each other. And I think a friendship really kind of locks in when, at least for me, I get to observe how somebody deals with a problem or a conflict. So I ate a really hot pepper at work the other day. And it was a really red habanero, which it's when it's spiciest. And I had had a nosebleed that morning, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me that I could have a nosebleed again. And I did. And my chest hurt because of the pepper. And I was doubled over a sink for a while, and I thought, I'm really in the moment right now. And so my friend brought me a box of tissues, and I asked her to drive me home because I normally ride my bike to work, and she agreed. And we laughed about it the entire way because she also had a pepper. She just had a much more mild reaction to it. And I think that was a moment where I had known this person for 3 years through work, and we became friends closer like 6 months ago. But this is really the first time that she's ever seen me suffer with something, and I was thankful to that she was there for that.
And I think at this time, because we are almost 15 minutes behind and we still have to do our closing gathas, let's hold space for Willie Nelson, the universe, and the hot habanero, as well as all of the conflicts and suffering that is occurring in the world. All right, I'm going to try and like double the speed on October announcements. We have our online meditation group on Wednesdays from 6 to 6:45 on Zoom. Information in the newsletter. Dharma discussion group on Thursdays from 9:30 to 11 a.m. and it's here at the temple. See the newsletter. Pretty much see the newsletter for any of these things if you're interested, or contact one of us for more information. The Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple board meeting is next Sunday, and Sangha members are invited to observe if you want to see how that works. And that takes place 11:30 to 1 p.m. You can also, it's here at the temple. You can also join via Google Meets. We have a fall silent retreat on Saturday, October 26th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can register online. It meets here at the temple. We have the Ulambana Day Potluck, which occurs on Sunday, October 27th, the day after the retreat, and that happens after Sunday service. Please bring food to share, small dish, just for like 6 to 8 people, and then just mark any potential allergies that are in that dish. Lastly, we have Buddhist-based recovery meetings on Mondays, 6:30 p.m. meditation, 7 p.m. meeting at the temple, Wednesdays, 6:30 p.m. at the Alano Club, and Fridays, 10:05 a.m. meditation, 10:30 a.m. meeting at Garfield Park at the entrance off Madison. You can also join via Zoom. At this time, if we can stand up and please recite our gathas. Just a reminder that when we are finished reciting our gathas, if you can fluff up your cushion, orient your cushion so it's kind of in that neat square-like pattern that it was when you first came in, and then return your chant books to somebody who's collecting them. That would be greatly appreciated. And together we say, for all unskillful action ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddhist teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to enter. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if this half of the room, turn to this half of the room, pull the teachings into your heart, and we bow. Thanks for being here, everyone. Have a wonderful Sunday. Sure.